Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. I greatly appreciate it. Over the years, many of you have reached out to ask why I feel like you haven't gotten the signs from the loved ones who have passed on around you. In this video, I hope to tell you a couple of the reasons why I feel you haven't and what you can do to be able to up your chances of getting those, because each one of us desires those. And unfortunately, every one of us has gone through the difficult situation of having to say goodbye to somebody that we love dearly. And it's a devastation. It's a feeling of loss that creates such a whirlwind of negative emotions. And some of us find it difficult to continue our lives as we knew it. We muster up the strength every day to just go on each day. And we desperately hold on to their memory. And we want them so close to us. And we fear that if we move forward and begin to heal, that in some way that means that we're letting them go. So we look for and we desire and we anxiously await those signs and those messages to give us the validation and the comfort that we feel we need to continue our journey. Remember that this earth plane, this life experience, is based on lessons and challenges and tests, along with gifts and rewards. But in order for us to continue our journey and move forward, there's a desperate need of learning. And in order for us to learn completely, without having all the answers, we need to engage in faith. Each one of us has to have a strong faith. Every single soul that enters the human experience has an automatic test of strength and faith. And in order for us to make connection to those who've passed on, we fully have to have this belief that doesn't waver, that is so strong, so solid. And they can then make the connection that you're hoping for. If tests of faith and tests of strength have not been learned, they can't interfere with our learning. They can only support us through it. So if you're not getting the messages or the signs that you feel, it's because you're so frantically and desperately wanting them. And you're putting out this need that is creating a sense of lack, and also speaking to spirit in a way that you have not learned. So you have to draw on the confidence and the belief and the knowing that you fully have, and a knowing that this is just a brief moment of your existence, and that after this is all over, you will transition to the afterlife where they will be, and you will be able to then embrace them again, feel them, and emotionally connect to them. So every one of us has these tests, and the ones who truly do the work will oftentimes have the larger signs. Most everyone gets minimal signs or small signs that we write off as coincidence. It's because we're so specific in what we want and need that we only fixate or focus on getting that. Many clients over the years have come to me with saying to me, if you could only tell me this one thing, well, automatically you're putting me in a very uncomfortable situation, but also you're stating to the universe, God and your soul, that you have not learned, that you need the gift before you do the work. That's not how it works. They have to be fully aware and feel and understand that you have learned that lesson in order for you to get the gifts. So I suggest that every day you start to build a faith of belief with strong trust and a knowing deep in your soul that this again is just a moment of time, and that once you expire from this existence, you will be back in the spirit realm with all of those ones that you're so desperately missing and loving and wanting to hear from. Many years ago, I had done a session with a woman who was probably in her later 70s, close to 80. And as she entered my home, I could feel the warmth of this woman. She was such a beautiful person inside and out. And she was so kind and soft-spoken. And as she entered my home, she immediately looked at a picture of the Blessed Mother that I have hanging on my wall. And she started to tell me how beautiful the picture was and how she had such a strong affinity and connection to the Blessed Mother. And so before even the introduction, we got into a discussion of faith. And she proclaimed her faith, and she told me how strong she was within it, and how she believed in not only this as being a gifted journey, but also that in the afterworld we reap the benefits and rewards, as most of us as spiritual people believe. And this went on for a few minutes. As we spoke, I began to tell her that I am going to light some candles for you. For the first 10 years of doing readings, I would light 4 votive candles for every single person that entered my home. I was told in a meditation that humans need a visual as well as a verbal example of what's going on in their life. So I am a very color-connected person. I oftentimes, in certain situations, will see it as a color. And so I picked 4 different votive candles, 4 different colored candles to light for each person. A white candle that would represent their happiness or their joy, their peace. A green candle that would represent their love and their heart energy. Their red for their relationships, and also a purple for their spirit and their faith. And so I explained the candles to this woman, and I said to her, I'm going to light them. We will look at the flame. If the wick and the flame go very high on that candle, that is giving you an indication that that specific area of your life is not settled, that there's some unease there and a need of attention. If it stays very peaceful, it means that you've learned those lessons, that you've conquered them, and there's no need for great attention there. Keep doing what you're doing. So I lit the candles and we began to talk, and as I did start to feel her energy, I immediately felt a pain of a great loss, of a loss that was devastating for this woman. And although she smiled and was very pleasant, I can feel it inside of her. And I fully at that moment knew that the white and the red candle would go high, because I felt that there was unhappiness in her life, and also it had to do with a relationship, possibly a spouse. And so as that happened, the white and the red flames surely did go very high, almost 4 inches high. And she looked at that with surprise and she said to me, Paul, what does that mean? And I said to her, that is an indication that there's either been great loss or very strong, uncomfortable feelings in a relationship that's devastating. And she just looked at me, and immediately I heard a voice on the right side of my head saying, that's my darling, my darling. And so I knew immediately that that was her husband. I could feel the love that this man had for her. It went so deep within me. And so I said to her, I'm hearing your husband. I can feel him here. And he's calling you his darling. Did he ever use that term of endearment when he talked with you? And she immediately started to cry out loud. And she said to me, oh my gosh, Paul, he only called me darling. It's a joke amongst the family and our friends. He just used that to describe me every day. And so that sign was so specific for her, and it allowed her to mourn a little further and to release all of the baggage and the pent-up emotion that she had. But for the next few moments, out of gratitude, she was telling me how blessed she was to be in this relationship with this man, and how truly they loved each other from start to finish. And in that, I began to tell her that at one point this had to end. This experience had to end. And as I was saying that, I looked at the red candle and it extinguished. It went out. There was smoke bellowing, and she had noticed it, and she said, oh my gosh, what does that mean? And I said, that represents the ending, that your relationship area is done. There will be no one else after this, and that was your one love, and it's over. Immediately I heard him say in my head, please don't ever say that to my wife. It will never be over. We will share forever. And I said to her, oh my gosh, he's a bit upset that I said end, because he is just wanting you to know that this will never end, that you will share eternity together. And he said to me, please, Paul, have my wife look at the red candle, please. And so I said to her, he wants you to look at the red candle. And we both turned to face it, and the flame went back on. It went back on and started to be the most beautiful, brilliant flame I had ever seen. And it was flickering, and it was doing all different dances. And he said, please tell her, this represents the deep love that I have for her. We will never part. We will always be together. And as I told her that, we both began to cry. And she grabbed my hand, and she thanked me. She said, this is the validation that I needed. She said, Paul, I don't know if I would have gotten it without having such a strong faith, a belief that I will share another experience with my husband, a knowing that we will be together. And she said, I must go forward until the time that God feels it's my time. And then I will look forward to the next journey that we have. And it was such a beautiful experience for me, one that touched my soul. It just made me so happy to see that people can love and commit like this and have such integrity connected to their relationship. But I say it was her faith, her belief and knowing that allowed her to get that specific message. She had already worked through the questions and the unsureness of questioning whether there was an afterlife or not. She didn't ever waver. She knew wholeheartedly. And that's what Spirit does. It waits for us to have a knowing. We can't get the gift without doing the work. We can't have a validation if we're questioning. They can't do our work for us. They can give us little signs along the way to keep our attention on the road of learning. They can send us a feather. Well, many people get dimes or pennies, and some people see cardinals and blue jays a lot. These are universal signs from Spirit giving us an indication that, hey, pay attention. We're here. The second story I'd like to tell you is a heartfelt one for me, especially because it has to do with my parents. My parents were two people who loved each other greatly as well. They grew up together. They met when my mom was 12 and my dad was 14. They went to a party together, and my mom tells the story that when she saw my dad, she told her girlfriend at 12 years old, I'm going to marry that man. And she did. She must have been psychic, and that's probably where I got it from. But they grew up together, and they grew together, and they became a beautiful couple. I was fortunate to have a good example of what a mom and dad and a husband and wife should be. And I'm the youngest of 5 children. I oftentimes tell them it took them 5 times to get it right. But anyway, they loved us each dearly. My parents were like inseparable. They were so committed to each other, and they had a romantic and a passionate relationship on top of that, which is such a display of love that isn't seen so often. And this went on for so long, and I used to say to people all the time, if somebody ever showed up at the door and said, hey, to my mom and dad, I can either take your spouse or I can take your 5 children, my mother would have had us bathed, dressed, fed, and out the door so fast we wouldn't have known what happened. I'm only kidding by saying that because they loved us dearly, but I can tell that the bond that they had, it just united them both. It was beautiful to witness. I'm grateful to have been a part of it. And so as we grew older, eventually my dad passed away. And as you can imagine, my mother went through devastation. She was in so many ways not herself ever again. And I used to think to myself that not only did my dad pass, but a very big part of my mother did as well. She was overwhelmed with despair and at times wanted to just not be here. She would say to me often, Paul, I just don't want to be here anymore. I want to be with your dad. And I didn't take offense to that because I completely understood that the love that she had for him was so far greater than anything that ever existed for her. And so oftentimes I would give her little messages and try to make her laugh just to keep her mind out of the fact that he wasn't there any longer. And this one particular day she said to me, Paul, can you do a reading for me? You've never done a complete reading for me. And I said, sure, Mom, absolutely. My mom lived in Las Vegas and I lived here on Long Island. And so I said to her, I'm going to tape it for you, but the unfortunate part is you'll only hear my side of the conversation. And she said, that's okay. That's the most important, she said. I don't mind. This was a difficult experience for me because I had to draw in energy of my dad, who I missed dearly. And it just made me feel so emotional, where I couldn't hold back my own tears as I relayed messages to my mother of his love and his commitment to her. It was a beautiful, beautiful, unbelievable experience, but it was an emotional roller coaster ride for me. And it completed after an hour and a half when my father said to my mother, I will not say goodbye. I will only just say we'll see each other again. And I remember that, and I said to my mother that, just that, and she was so happy. She had found peace in some of my father's words and some of the things that he offered her about the afterlife and how much he was desiring and anxiously awaiting her to take her dancing, which is one thing that they love to do together. And so I said, Mom, I love you, and I'm so happy that I could have been part of this for you. I will send this off to you immediately. And so I sent the cassette tape, and that was that. About 5 days later, she called me in all excitement, and she was like, oh, Paul, thank you so much. I can't thank you enough. And I thought it was kind of odd because I didn't feel like I did anything out of the ordinary that a son wouldn't do for a mother. And I said, Mom, that's okay. You don't have to make such a big deal of it. And she said, well, it was just so nice of you to add that touch. And I said, what are you talking about? And she said to me, Paul, come on. The Frank Sinatra music that's playing in the background. And I said, Mom, I didn't play any music. She said, oh, stop kidding. Stop being that way. She said, really, that was so sweet. Those were all your father's favorite songs. And so my mom played it for me. She put it very close to the phone. And sure enough, there was Frank Sinatra music playing very faintly in the background of the tape. This was how much my father loved my mother. He was able to transcend the human boundary and to put that music on the tape for my mother as a validation of his love for her. Now, to know my dad, you had to know that he loved Frank Sinatra. He listened to Frank Sinatra so much it was crazy. And my father was probably Frank Sinatra's biggest fan, so no other sign could have been as specifically validating as that. And my mother and I cried to think that my father was able to do that, to give her that peace and comfort. And from that point forward, every session I taped with a cassette tape. And I gave it to people over the years, and so many called me to say, how did you know that that was my father's favorite song, or my grandmother's favorite song? Or how did you know I like this specific type of music? Or the words of that song is exactly what's going on in my life right now. Those people got specific answers to their life because they trusted. And so if we are going to want a connection, if we want to move forward past our lessons, we have to have faith. And if we trust both of those, and we really believe and know that there's an afterlife, and they're only just waiting to get in contact with us, because each and every day they're around us. They never leave us. They may ring your ears at times. That's an indication that they're there and they're trying to make communication. If you grow this experience of faith, I promise you, you are going to be more likely to be comforted in so many ways that you'll be surprised. Sometimes my faith does waver at times, and not often. I've built up a very strong foundation and a belief that I have really held on to and embraced my entire life. And as I grow further in life, it becomes stronger. But this one particular day, going back some time, I was questioning, why everything was happening to me. I was in the midst of so much struggle and getting hit in many different directions, and I couldn't get a clear idea of why this was going on. And so feeling frustrated, I said, let me just go get in my car and take a drive. I got to get out of here. And so I got in my car, and in that, this was after my mother had passed away. And I was in the car speaking to them. I was looking up, speaking to them, and I was saying to them, I know you're here. Please, please give me that that validation. Show me a sign. Give me the comfort I am looking for right now. And I honestly believe, because I do have such a strong faith that I do get those signs faster than most people. I didn't think it would be this fast. But as I was looking up, speaking to them, and I was emotional and passionate about what I was speaking to them about, I then brought my eyes back down to the road to find that the car in front of me had stopped short, and I wasn't paying attention. So I had to slam on my brakes, and as I did, I was thrust ahead. And with that, my focus went right on the license plate of the car in front of me, to which it said, Jean and Joe. Those are my parents' names. I sat and wept. I had to pull my car over because I was crying so hard. To know that the love that they had for me gave me the ability to see that specific sign. And nothing could have been more specific. When we love, when we connect through love and faith, there's nothing they can't do because the lesson has been learned. If we've yet to learn it, they cannot guide us through it. They can only support us to it. So if you're hoping for a sign from someone that you love dearly and you miss, and that you feel like you have not been able to move forward from that experience, then please start believing that they're not gone. Start knowing that you'll see them again and trusting in that every single day, because you cannot just ask for a sign and receive it. Besides the fact, many of us become overwhelmed and obsessed with finding the sign that we create a sense of lack, and it will not bring it to us. So be confident, be calm, and please release all of the expectations and the ideas and the thoughts surrounding it. Our brain, our ego, is keeping us in thought. In order for us to have faith, we must absorb it with feeling and emotions and embrace it that way. That's what faith is. Faith does not require thought. It's a knowing. So if you do this, I promise you, you will start to feel them. Not only see the signs, but you will feel them. They are able to make their way to you in ways that you can't even imagine. So every day, build that faith with repetitive behavior. Tell yourself and really know that this is just a moment of time. And once again, you will be joined together in another experience that will take you to another realm. Get excited over the possibilities. It's hard for us to imagine when we're mourning the death of someone that we loved so dearly. The missing of that person can become crippling at times. But you have to dig deep. You have to be able to really get that knowing going and support it each day and get excited and speak to them as if you already are in communication with them. And then I promise you the miracles will start to happen. So I hope that each one of you can mend your heart some. Know that this is a bigger picture going on here that the human part of you can't comprehend. And that your tests and lessons and your challenges are what you need to go through based on strength and faith. So have that, be that, know that, and you will start to have the most incredible connection to spirit. It will become the norm for you, and you won't ever feel the need any longer because it'll show up before you ask. So I wish you well. I pray that your heart relieves itself and that you can really commit to a beautiful journey of faith, strength, hope, and knowing. And I'd love to hear the stories of what happens after you do. So keep up the good work. I thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of your healing journey. If I can be of assistance, please check out my website at heavenshealingguidance.com. There'll be a list of my services on there and also a contact number if you'd like to do any kind of counseling or a spiritual reading. I wish you all well. God bless you all. And I'm excited for all of you to experience a reconnecting with those that you miss so dearly. Take care and be well.